Extending from 4 universities and across the state of Missouri, University of Missouri Extension offers real-world, hands-on, research-based approaches to some of the most pressing challenges in Missouri, including agricultural growth and stewardship, workforce and community development, and health and well-being. In this segment, our MU Extension experts discuss issues surrounding educational access in Missouri.
So thinking about y'all's vast perspectives on this, I'm curious to learn, how would you describe the state of education in Missouri as it were right now?
I think we have a lot of good things going for us in Missouri. I think that we do have a strong K-12 infrastructure. We have wonderful universities and our community college system, that there's a lot of great things that are in place. But I think we could do for more of that recognition of the other parts of education, that whether it's taking place at libraries or community centers or museums, I think that there's the opportunity for the state to invest in those perspectives.
We're also starting to see support for early childhood education, which is critical. I mean, an investment at the youngest ages is a foundation for our future. And so we're seeing that in supports for early childhood educators being treated as professionals, and that being seen as a professional and viable career for Missourians that's a really good direction that the state is going in. So
I think there are still some opportunities to sort of generalize opportunity for the students that we have. I think there are so many districts that make up the general school system in the state that you can go from district to district and see some vast discrepancies in resources, in the qualities of the buildings and the qualities of the materials that the kids have access to. And what I think is great about what 4-H does is that kind of adds some of that parity that you get in some of those after-school programs and reaching and connecting with people. But I do think that that's a bit of a deficit for the state. And it's not just urban-rural, because there are very poor urban districts as well, but you do see some significant disparities all under the umbrella of public education.
One of the things I see for the state of education in Missouri is that we are in a workforce deficit, where we have way more jobs than we have young people qualified to do them. As the baby boomers retire and go hang out in Cabo, we don't have enough young people with the tools to take those positions, especially in our more technical or manual jobs.
How do we define educational excellence?
I think typically it's easy to quantify with degrees and certifications, graduation rates, but really educational excellence is so much more than that, and it's a holistic approach. Having a growth mindset is educational excellence. Being adaptable in these changing times is educational excellence. Being able to seek out credible information is educational excellence. And being self-driven and motivated, being resourceful, all those kind of paints a holistic picture of excellence, where you are going to see thriving community members who can adapt in changing times that we can't predict. And so those are a little bit more difficult to measure, but I think we're recognizing them as important and part of that definition. So.
Yeah, I would say educational excellence is providing students with the toolkit to be competitive in a global economy and industries. And so, given we don't know what jobs we'll have or what professions we'll need 10, 20 years from now, but providing our students today with the tools necessary to compete, not only today, but tomorrow, I think is a reflection of educational excellence.
And I will add that also to create an environment where the student can feel comfortable learning. That's educational excellence. If the students don't feel that they belong in a place that he is learning or she's learning, or the relationships that they are building, that make you feel welcome, that make you feel appreciated, and that of course provide the environment so you can shine and you can find what you would like to do in life.
Yeah, for me, I think it's such a big question. And I think my colleagues here have tapped on so many important things, especially around preparation, having the tools, relationships. We often, when the term educational excellence is often used, it's usually used in terms of just outcomes, academic achievement. But it's really so much more. And I think, especially with this group, folks who do a lot of work outside of the school system understand educational excellence in a broader sense. And I think in the post-COVID era, we've realized that educational excellence cannot just be about academic success, because so many young people struggled or are still struggling in the current post-COVID era because maybe educationally they haven't received or attained that excellence in a holistic manner, which I think a lot of after school and community programs and a more systemic education and those types of opportunities provide.
So with that, what should learners be learning?
Learners need durable skills that, such as communication, problem solving, resourcefulness, so that they can take charge of their own educational journeys. And so in that, we do need to respect each person's individualized interests, not just learning styles. So that way they're learning something that they value. And so sometimes we teach kids and we present subjects that maybe they don't want. One time, some 8th graders asked me, why are we learning algebra? And I said, well, I don't know who in here is going to be an engineer or who might want to be an engineer. And so it would be a disservice for me not to prepare you all equally. So yes, they need some basic subject knowledge, but overall, I think learning that growth mindset and those durable skills that aren't subject specific are incredibly important.
The people that are learning, we need to understand that learning is a lifelong process. That learning is about controlling your emotions. Learning is about finding your pathway. Learning is about becoming a person that can be responsible. It's a person that is going to get on time into their work. It's a person that is going to be a father or a mother that is going to be respectful. It's a person that is going to control all the environment that is targeting you with so many things. So for me, education is just not only the books. It's about becoming the person that you would like to be, the family member that you will be proud of.
Learners need to learn how to learn. You're trying to put people on a path, as Lupita was just talking about, where they're going to become the best possible version of themselves that they can be. And developing those discernment skills and that ability to filter information, that ability to say, okay, I'm a teacup that's getting hit by a fire hose right now. What is it that I should actually be taking in, and how do I interpret some of that stuff? And we're not going to be able to give them all of those skills. We're not going to be able to screen all of that information for them, nor should we. But our goal should be to say, okay, how do you look at this? How can you look at it? What are the various ways you can look at things that come your way? And I think that those are the opportunities at every single level, whether we're doing before they're old enough to go to school, or in my case, where they're at or near retirement or beyond retirement sometimes. How are they dealing with the information that they're getting, and what is that based on?
Can you share a little bit more about how you are integrating that into the programs and learning experiences that you're offering?
I think one of the best ways to to take professional audiences and walk them through some of that is to expose them to a variety of perspectives. It's a little bit of a lost art in our hyper-political era right now, but I love the kinds of programs that say, here are several different ways to look at the same, now in our case we're in healthcare, there are still lots of different ways that you can look at the same problem. And if you throw a lot of different perspectives in a panel discussion and don't tell them what's right or wrong, you say, these are some of the things that are out there, here's some of the research that supports each one of these things, get that discussion going and let people fire it around the room a little bit. Those kinds of things are very, very valuable in growing them as what Lupita talked about, lifelong learners, and saying that these are the processes that they can go through, because they may have come in with one set of assumptions, and upon listening to some of that going, well, maybe it needs to be filtered a little bit differently in these different directions, and we may come out with something that's completely different than any of the things that we started with. And that to me is the way you kind of grow people as learners.
In 4-H Youth Futures, we're focusing on helping learners learn about themselves first. And so learn about their strengths and weaknesses and how they can self-regulate. And so I think that's definitely part of the picture, and helping them, when they learn about themselves and understand themselves, they can create pathways for themselves and also be more empathetic toward others, and they're able to work with others and see things from different perspectives. But if they don't know where their own biases are coming from in the beginning, it's difficult for that. But I'm excited about our 4-H programming in that regard. So.
I think one of the biggest changes that's happening right now in education is that information is at the tip of all the kids' fingers. Like, they can get anything that they need. They can look up any fact. They can, now with AI, they can even do things that may not have been possible 2 years ago. And so as youth plan for their future and move into their future, it is learning how to learn, because they will always need to learn new things as they move forward. But it's also learning how to process the information that's available to them in a different way, because they need to be able to do something. Once they've Googled something and they've gotten the answer, they need to do something with that. And so it's really the application of knowledge that is becoming much more important than 30 years ago remembering the facts and knowing the content. Content is there. What are we going to do with that? And then applying that to different situations.
And also I will add that learning life skills. We have programs in 4-H, for example, on my own, where they learn how to live or how to mimic living with a certain amount of money, where they learn how to write a check, when they learn how to ask for a loan. Those are things that normally the school system is not teaching you. And when you are an adult, how to pick a roommate for if I'm gonna go to college, how to sign a loan, those are the kinds of things that sometimes the education have forgotten. And another thing that I will add is that if you cannot in any way work with everybody, and knowing that everybody can be different is okay, and respecting the people that you work, and learn those soft skills that we need to survive in the environment that we live is really hard, is really, really hard to grow up as an adult.
Tagging on to what Lupita just said, when schools do like the personal finance class or some of the other classes that might cover on these, they're coming from that academic perspective of learning outcomes, and did the knowledge about an apartment rental contract come across. And out of school time programs and 4-H programs allow for that application of that knowledge and that skill, that when you have more time in the extra time and space of out-of-school time programs, you can practice these skills. You can actually invest more time in students going and getting an application and filling it out there as a group, whereas oftentimes in the school day, there's a limited amount of time to cover many topics.
One of the things I had the good fortune of doing this past summer was talking with a lot of our 4-H youth leaders. And these are young people that have been in 4-H for 10, 12 years and asking them to think back about their experiences in 4-H and what were some of the real salient experiences that they had. And almost all of them talked about either getting out of their comfort zones by their own choice or being sort of nudged out of their comfort zones. And that's sort of a common experience of a lot of 4-Hers. And the fact that they had these sort of retrospective ways of looking back on it, I thought it was just fascinating that they all mentioned that and how important it was to their own growth. So in relation to getting to know yourself, also understanding the experiences that actually helped you to grow and help, to give you a more well-rounded education. And that's really what they're talking about, is that kind of education that they're getting.
It's interesting to hear y'all talk about this because I think it connects to a point that was made earlier today, but then also in our prep conversation, this phrase of teaching the whole person. Can we unpack that for a little bit? What does that actually mean, and then what does that look like?
The move in education to teach the whole person, I think, is an understanding that sending someone into the world with a lot of facts, but the inability to communicate is actually detrimental to the world at large. And so what we do at Extension and 4-H is we attempt to send you into the world with not only the knowledge, but with the soft skills surrounding it so that you are able to apply what you know in healthy, productive, and consistent manner. And so when I think about teaching the whole person, I'm thinking about what is the end goal 10 years from now, not necessarily what's going to help them on Friday for this test. It's going to help them at 23, 24 when they're at work and they're dealing with conflict. What's something that I can include as I'm teaching this fact so that you get this knowledge, but you also learn something that's going to benefit you as an adult.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that we teach people or allow them the space to fail, because that's life. And so when we're so success driven and we're saying, you've got to pass this, or 70% or whatever it is, then the failure is looked at as negative instead of a growth space and instead of a normal part of life. And so I think teaching the whole person is also teaching them resiliency in the face of challenges and failure, how to process that and take critical feedback and grow from that, for sure.
And we work within communities too. We don't necessarily, in a siloed setting or in a siloed environment. So how can young people address issues that they're facing today? And absolutely agree with what Justin said, that we're working on the skills for today and 10, 15 years down the road, but also giving them the skills if they feel and the support to tackle challenges in their school and their community. It's a whole network. They're not individually pieces, so that's a lot of the work that we do in Extension and in different ways is bringing those partners together, because whether they're in an out-of-school program or they're in school, that's not the only space that they live and interact with. So how do we work as a community in those environments to support in all the ways that they're engaging?
I think that as you've developed their abilities to learn and their abilities to process, you get to try and meet them where they are, even at the professional level. And I think we get to take it a step even further because of the whole sense of community. We work now a lot more with the healthcare team in its entirety rather than individual disciplines like physicians or nurses or therapists or something like that. And that becomes a different, almost an individual learner in and of itself, that the team is learning together. And that becomes part of that, teaching that whole person, teaching that whole team.
Young people are they're children of families, they're siblings, they're employees, their students. So the idea that they're educated in the community, and then they have different roles within the community, within their different aspects of their lives. And I think, for me at least in youth development, that's the way we look at young people. It's not just you're a student and you have to get A's in school. It's like, no, you're a complete person, and so we educate according to that. So,
How should learners be learning?
I mean, people bring a lot of different learning styles to the table, and it's incumbent on the people who are responsible for helping to guide the learning process to understand that. We don't have the professor in front of the room that is the only one that knows everything, and you have to be able to absorb everything that this professor gives you, because the content is available for everybody. And so it is in those opportunities. There are still people who want to be taught, who want that experience, who want that expert presentation, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are also people who are much more experiential in how they go about doing things. So a long time ago, I got to be involved in a couple of research projects where we were doing substance abuse education for young kids. And we took the same content and we built it in multiple formats. So we did a straightforward didactic presentation. We did a game format. We did a workbook kind of activity kind of format. We did a multi-episode TV show kind of format. And we tested each step of the way what they learned and what they retained. And it all worked in its own regard, but some of the more passive learning styles were still very evident and very effective with that age group. And so those hows, I think, we can get carried away with trying to experiment and trying to say, oh, we can do all of this and we can do all of this. And sometimes people just need to sit down and hear something. So I think tuning to your learners is important, but very difficult.
And I would add to that and say, like, the multiple strategies, because rarely do we work with one child or one adult at a time, and we're working in the group. So paying attention and planning for those multiple styles, having some lecture, some practice, some hands-on, some reflection, like building all of that in is an important part of trying to meet the needs of a group.
And that's all engagement in different ways, whether it's listening, it's applying, it's that critical thinking, it's that inquiry learning, whatever the content, whether it is an area that is your spark and passion or it's an area that you need to learn for life. If you build in that engagement, as everyone's been talking about, whether it's physical, hands-on, or their brain is engaged in discussion and application, that's going to help that long-term retention of that content and those skill sets.
I will say that in the case of 4-H, we are project based. So one thing that I really like is that the kids have the option to select the project that they will be involved. Another thing is that they learn by doing. There is a lot of hands-on experiences that the majority of the kids, I will say, they enjoy that. But one of the things that really make me think that these educational opportunities are the best is they are the ones that decide the way that they want to learn, the way that they want to discover what they want to apply.
Students should be learning with expectation. As my colleagues have said, there's a lot of different ways to learn, but sometimes we use that as excuses not to learn, right? And we'll say, well, it's not my learning style, or it's not my, and it's like, well, part of the learning process is you showing up with the expectation that you are here to learn. And if we can get our students to do that, then that's something that carries when you go to work, that carries when you go to higher ed and beyond.
How is education changing?
We've got content at our fingertips, as Terry mentioned, and so it's changing to how to ethically use our tools. We are suddenly extremely efficient now, or we can be, and so now we can teach or model how to use these tools to
build a better society, to build a better educational system, or build a better health system or community. So I think that those tools are changing our entire lives faster than we're comfortable with. But I think as we model resiliency, we're going to see education kind of shifting toward less, away from content and toward, as Terry said, application and constructive knowledge.
I think in a more general sense also, I think it's just the less reliance on what were traditionally authorities or experts in different domains of knowledge and learning. And now, because there's just information overload, people are getting information, especially young people are getting information from so many different places where it used to be directly from authorities of different knowledge streams. That's something I think that we, even as educators, haven't fully been able to deal with yet.
I think another trend, and this kind of builds on Kelly's comments, the trend is for more professional development and professional learning within the workforce. That K-12 education hopefully is preparing children and youth to think and to be good citizens because they have that knowledge at their fingertips that they can get. But once they've entered the workforce, I think that employers are looking for more professional development for their employees. Employers aren't expecting their new employees especially to come in with that knowledge. They want them to have these good employability skills and communication skills, et cetera, because there's this opportunity to train them once they're in that position and help them to develop themselves in their career pathways over time. So I think that is a trend that is different from 20 years ago, where employers may have expected people to walk in the door and be able to do the job. I think now employers are looking for good people that they can train.
One of the things that was, I won't say it was blown up by COVID because it was already happening, but it was accelerated by COVID, is that we have either lost or completely redefined the learning community. It is still a very valuable learning tool, and so we have to take advantage of the technologies which have their limitations without being able to do all of the same things together, but it redefines those learning communities, which are very, very valuable tools in that ongoing learning process. And so that is still in flux. That has not settled back in yet, and I don't know where that's going to land, because we also have very busy people with very limited times to participate in learning, in those long learning opportunities, even if they have those natural curiosities and those desires to do those things. They have to do their jobs while also trying to learn the next phases of their jobs. And that's a big, big challenge in our environment right now.
Yeah, I think one trend we see is the unbundling of education. Terry talked about like professional development becoming more trendy within the workplace. And one thing that does is put pressure on education providers to provide targeted classes and courses that normally would be part of a certificate or a degree program, where if I have an office and I need professional development on communication skills, I can bring in an instructor to teach us for 2 days or 3 days, whereas this would normally be a 3-credit class. Now, educational organizations are finding, how can I offer that in a 3-hour setting? How can I offer that in a online self-paced course that now, even though I already hired them, they still need this? And I think that's definitely a trend that is, I think COVID definitely kind of sparked it, where it's like, I can learn at home and I can learn on YouTube. And I think educational institutions are like, wait a minute, YouTube is free, we're losing money. So how can we get in on this and do some asynchronous learning and do some learning that's unbundled from our traditional programming?
I think that is a really, really good point, because schools are starting to do more virtual learning, even for in-seat students. And so as I'm thinking about high school students now being in the workforce 10 years from now and needing that professional development, they are getting virtual coursework. And 10 years from now, they're going to be completely comfortable with watching a YouTube video to get more get more information about a particular thing that will be needed in the workplace. So I mean, it brings up a whole bunch of questions about how do we make sure that the information out there is the best information out there, and big questions like that. But I think as far as learning and learning styles, those students that may have benefited from the lecture part are watching YouTube videos where people are lecturing to them about whatever their topic is. In a sense, I mean, that's a little bit of what's happening. So the virtual learning, I personally think, is here to stay.
And I think that trend is helping with the access part, and it's definitely the high tech is helping with that, our access, but also at the same time, we're learning that high touch is so critical. So at the same time we've got high tech blowing up, we're also learning that we need high touch.
I think that one of the things that we are on the cusp of doing very well, and is a growing area for us, is the ability to reach people that ordinarily don't get reached as well. Something we haven't touched on yet is what's called Project Echo, which is a tool that's used to say, if a community doesn't have a particular expertise in a medical area, where can they get the information that they need? And what Echo does is it brings together a learning community over a period of time that says, okay, let's say we bring cases to the table, we discuss them, we chart paths for treatment. We can't put an expert in every community for every condition, but we can say you have access to knowledge, you have access to people.
To piggyback on what Tom was saying, we definitely need experts to come in and help our teachers, because our teachers, we know that young people need individual education plans. We know that it takes time. However, teachers have maybe 120 students and maybe 2 minutes of planning time per day to grade and really dig into their students' needs. And so here's an opportunity for Extension and other professionals to come in and approach this as a community effort. It takes a village. And so when we are open to using our village that we have at our disposal, free up teacher time so that they can be the experts that they are, and have equal amount of planning time as instruction time. I think that is really important and would help.
What are the biggest barriers to educational access in Missouri?
I'm going to say something that we need to be better team to educate the youth in our state. Because we said we are after school, we are in school, we are clubs, we are K to 12. I think that the schools, the programs that are out of the school, like after school, or the 4-H programs, the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, all the programs, we need to work together in order for us to move the needle in the education excellence in our state.
The future of education is a community network for the need that it is not just the responsibility of a school or a homeschool collaborative. It is the community that will support that young person and that adult in their learning. And that community can be a physical community, it can be a professional community, but it is very much a community that has to work together for the current needs and anticipate what those future needs will be for that learner.
One of the biggest barriers that I've seen in my career is social support networks. So technical barriers will change through time, but if you know that this certain pathway is best for you, or people are telling you it's best for you, but no one's done it before you that you know, and no one's doing it with you that you know, that struggle is real. And then when you reach a roadblock along that pathway, and you don't know who to ask and you're alone, you're done. And so I've seen that that happen time and time again with college careers. And so I think social support networks are a huge barrier that are often go overlooked. And so I think bringing families and communities and that developmental relationships that we talk about is incredibly critical in eliminating that barrier.
One of the things that I think about when I think about access in education is the achievement gap, which has been talked about a lot. But what parallels the achievement gap is the opportunity gap. And when you think about high-income youth and the experiences that they have out of school time, whether that's going to karate class in the evening, going to museums on the weekend, or week-long summer vacations with their families, all of those opportunities that those youth have add to their experiences and the learning that they've part of their overall learning package that they have. And so the opportunity gap programs, out-of-school time programs, whether it's 4-H or after-school programs or Saturday programs, all help to provide experiences to youth of all income levels, but hopefully we are doing an especially good job with those that are from low-income families, so that they are experiencing some of those same things that their upper-income peers are experiencing.
We've lost educational, especially non-K-12, have lost the reputation that we're necessary. And so a lot of parents, especially low income, they don't want programming anymore that they have to bring their kid to or pick their kid up from, or because during COVID, it was like, wait a minute, they were in all these programs and now these programs don't exist and they're still alive. And so they kind of took, so after COVID, it was like, why would we start doing this stuff again? I'm already busy. I'm already tired from work. The least amount of things that I can do and my kids still be okay, that's what I'm going to do. And so a barrier of access that we're facing right now is, how do we encourage or how do we ingratiate our programs with parents and with communities that say we are still needed, we are still necessary.